Spectre of Torment is the latest expansion for Shovel Knight, released alongside the Treasure Trove update on the 3rd of March for the Nintendo Switch, before having a staggered release for other platforms over the following 2 months. At the time of recording, the only version yet to be released is the Fire TV version. It's available either as a standalone release or as part of the Treasure Trove collection. While Plague of Shadows took place concurrently with the campaign now titled Shovel of Hope, Spectre of Torment is a full-fledged prequel, and follows Spectre Knight as he helps the Enchantress recruit the Knights of the Land into the Order of No Quarter, and along the way we also learn a bit about Spectre Knight's history and how he came to be undead. As always, it's very well written and reveals some pretty cool details about some of the characters, though on occasion it feels a tad bit thin, but not much more so than Shovel of Hope. As it was with Plague Knight before him, Spectre Knight's gameplay brings with it drastic changes. Where Shovel Knight was designed to be familiar and Plague Knight was all about offense, Spectre Knight is all about movement and agility. He can wall jump off certain surfaces and climb them for a very short distance, break destructible objects by jumping off them, and can also slash enemies and certain objects in mid-air to gain height or rapidly descend. I personally found this playstyle to be far easier to get used to than Plague Knight. It's much less fiddly and seems to have more of a flow to it. Also, Spectre Knight doesn't seem to get knocked back quite as far as Plague Knight does, so I'm quite grateful for that too. There is one mechanic that disappointed me a little bit. There are some sections where Spectre Knight can grind on rails, but unless you have a cloak upgrade which lets you grind on anything, this only appears in about 4 levels, only one of which is part of the main story, which honestly is kind of a shame, because it's a pretty cool mechanic and I wanted to see a bit more of it. Where Shovel Knight and Plague Knight had relics and arcana respectively, Spectre Knight has Curios, which he trades for red skulls. Uniquely to this expansion, once you pay for a curio, you then have to complete a short level to retrieve it, typically revolving around tactical use of the said curio. This is kind of a nice touch, making you work just a bit more for the curio and also letting you try it out and get used to it before you go into a real level. Also unique and quite strange is the fact that while you can purchase upgrades for your cloak and curio similarly to the previous 2 campaigns, you initially have to spend gold to unlock the ability to do so. I'm not entirely sure what this achieves other than giving the player something to spend their gold on, and if this is the case, it's definitely a new way of doing things, but it's not much more than that and doesn't really add much to the game. As for the levels, they've all been completely redesigned specifically for Spectre Knight, with all new layouts, puzzles, traps, and even redone boss fights to better suit Spectre Knight's fighting style. Also notably, the map screen is completely missing. Spectre Knight can recruit the Order in whichever order he likes, simply teleporting to the relevant level directly from the Tower of Fate. Dispensing with some of the linearity further sets Spectre of Torment apart from the other 2 campaigns, and also means the special levels and extra bosses are different too. The extra bosses are now encountered at more specific points in the story instead of being found on the map screen, and this has actually allowed them to have more of an impact on the plot, some considerably more than others. The special stages have been replaced with flashback stages, again played through at specific points in the plot, which give little glimpses into Spectre Knight's backstory. Squirting in this little side story helps to pad out the occasional thin parts of the plot, and it is pretty interesting to pay attention to in its own right too. As far as the new music goes, there's only really 2 things you need to know. Jake Kaufman is back, and he is still an absolute god of game music. Some old tracks return, and there are a few original ones, but on top of that, the majority of Shovel Knight's soundtrack has been completely remixed for Spectre of Torment, and as usual, it sounds fantastic. Most striking perhaps is the remix of King Knight's stage theme, which has undergone a complete mood reversal and sounds totally different. As for version differences, there's not really much to say this time, since it's basically the same stuff as with the previous expansions. The 3DS and Wii U versions let you use the touchscreen to switch curios and view your gear, though there is also the addition of Madame Amoeba in those versions, who will sum up a tiny little shovel fairy if you scan in an amiibo, which other than looking unusually adorable doesn't really do too much. In conclusion, Yacht Club have done it again. Spectre of Torment is another great addition to the Shovel Knight family, boasting unique gameplay, great music as usual, and a story which, while patchy in places, does more than enough to keep you interested. As regards length, compared to the previous campaigns, it's quite short at about 4 to 5 hours, but for the standalone price of £6.99, that's not too bad. As stated earlier, the game is also available as part of the Treasure Trove collection, which contains all 3 campaigns, plus the upcoming King Knight campaign, and costs £18.99, which in my opinion is the best way to play it. That is all for this video. Thank you very much for watching. Like and share with your friends, leave a comment if you like it, leave a comment if you don't like it, and I'll see you all next time. Ta-ta!